Hi, everyone. I'm Pip from Seymour Digital Media. You're listening to Know How Marketing Lab podcast. This podcast brings together different experts in marketing from our Facebook group, Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer. Each week, we get on here and we talk about something search marketing like Google Ads or SEO, social media marketing from Facebook to TikTok, or website marketing. If you're a marketer or aspiring marketer, a business owner or entrepreneur, this podcast for you. We're going to share the best SEO, search, social, and website strategies. We share tips and hacks, Google Ads strategies, what's going on in the current market. Each week, we discuss something exciting and awesome in marketing.
This week, we're going to be talking about what you need to do to make sure that your WordPress site is secure. This is going to be tailored specifically to WordPress because, they're the majority of websites. And also, it does have some unique security issues that you got to be aware of when you're setting up a website. And to start off, my name is Phelan. I work at Seymour Digital Media, where we focus on search engine marketing.
And I'm Greg McKinnon with Original 72 Creative, and we're a full-service website graphic design and digital marketing firm in Vancouver.
Awesome. And so, I think that the big one, just kind of off the bat, that people need to be aware of, just in a general sense, is because WordPress is set up on a lamp where it uses PHP, and PHP is specifically has some really bad security vulnerabilities. Like, it's one of those ones that it's really fast to get started and get going, but it also meant that by default it had some big security issues of being, people doing SQL injection attacks and stuff like that were really easy to do in PHP, which SQL injection, the fastest way to describe it is basically someone ask your database to give it back a bunch of information. And that's kind of the fastest way to explain it. And so it's a really good way for all the users of your website. If you're storing passwords and stuff like that, then people can get access to your website that way. So
yeah, it wasn't my top thing on the list, but absolutely is one of those things that you do want to make sure you're running the latest version of PHP. But that comes with a warning, because there are many times that software built for WordPress, the theme, or plugins may not be compatible with the latest versions of PHP. So while you do want to make sure you're on the latest version for that security, you also want to make sure your site doesn't go down because there's software that you're using that is going to not be compatible with the latest version of PHP. So that's a little warning there. A lot of the times, that's almost the number one thing I see when a website has an issue, is that the PHP version was updated and something stops working on the site. It's either a 500 critical error or, something like that. It's like a dead giveaway. The first thing I look at is what version of PHP are they running? And is there a piece of software that was just updated that is now not compatible with an older version, or was it not updated and not compatible with the new version? It's my first go-to in troubleshooting.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, the only reason why I kind of brought up the SQL injection is just sort of like to kind of coat of there are security issues that are specific with this one. Most people, like you said, if you keep things up to date, people are aware of this, so they do kind of keep up to date with this and how to fix it. It's definitely one that, you want to keep it up to date, keep backups. Those are all super important for making sure that you're going to be secure, so that no matter what, you're kept safe.
Yeah, we'll get to more of the keeping things up to date, because it is a critical thing to keep your site safe. But to start off, I had sort of three at the very top, which are just super easy things to do when you are getting started with your site. Is one, choose a really good host. A host that's reputable, a host that's secure, and that could eliminate tons of problems for you in the future, is just selecting a really good host for your site. Yeah. Secondly is choosing a really good theme, a reputable theme, and choosing reputable plugins and widely used plugins.
Yeah.
That will give you probably the majority of safety with a site, is just making those good choices at the very beginning, and making sure what you're selecting is not just some randomly coded theme or randomly coded plugin by someone who, is a novice developer sitting at home or something like that. You really want to make sure it's something that's solid, tried, tested, and true kind of a thing. And that'll save you a ton of headaches in the future, probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely one, especially because it's open source. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to look at it and see what's under the hood. And a lot of people that have more experience with WordPress security that'll look at it and be like, this is insane. We need to uninstall this right away. Or, so the more eyes that are looking at it, that's a better sign, because there's going to be a lot of people that know the ins and outs and know what would be a security issue or any type of issue with these ones. And it's also a big reason why you see those big, this WordPress plugin has like a security issue, please update right away, is because there's a whole community that's behind it that's like, hey, we found this issue that like maybe even the developers didn't know, but the community finds something and then brings it to their attention and then they fix it. And so that's one of the big advantages about open source, is that it's lots of eyes and lots of people looking for all the different ways that you could tackle something. And because security, definitely you need lots of people looking at the issue to make sure that they, you see it from different angles and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very common to have a piece of software released or an update released that, because it was limited beta testing or only tested by the developers before they put it out, because there's such a small amount of people actually performing a couple of tests on that before it gets released to the public, that there is a potential problem caused in another area, potentially, that they're not even looking for, because they've made this one change somewhere here and they're like, okay, that works. But sometimes they're not testing everything else to see if what they changed here actually like affected anything else somewhere along the lines in the theme or the plugin or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And having that mass amount of users using this open source software, a lot of the times these things are identified within a couple hours and often fixed just as fast. I just recently I'm testing a piece of beta software right now, and I literally downloaded it, I want to say maybe half hour after the beta was released. I installed it and started playing around with it. And as I was playing around with it, I noticed a couple of things. And when I went to log it to the developer, there was already a fix. Not necessarily for what I was going to log, but there was already a fix for what they had released like half hour or an hour earlier. So, I mean, that's how quick, when you have open source software, so many people using it, these things are identified really fast.
Yeah, exactly. And security also is about, especially online security, is not about like the cookie cutter, like this is the best, we want you to go down this primrose path. Most people that are wanting to do bad things, they look at it like, if I push this here and like, this gives me an opening here that I can then exploit in order to do something else that was totally unintended. And like a lot of like the example that I like to think of is there was like a break into an Apple store, which had like the best security in the world. And like it was impenetrable. Like they had like top rated security, but the problem was the Starbucks next door didn't. And so they broke into the Starbucks, cut the drywall open and broke into the Apple store. So it's really about like, it's seeing the full context and seeing how other people are going to manipulate the situation. That's where the security comes in. And so I think that kind of leads into some of the stuff about like, making sure that you have, some basic ones as well of like strong passwords, really important. Two-factor authentication. Well, like text two-factor authentication isn't perfect. It definitely beats not having it on. It's like anything that you can do to slow someone down. And for the average website, average user, like these are automated systems. They're generally not like people trying to break into like your little website. They're usually just spamming out as many websites. And so if you give them like a little bit of friction, most of the time, they're just not going to bother with you because you're more effort than you're worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Strong passwords is a must. I can't stand when people use like the simplest passwords. So passwords are annoying, but they're necessary. So just choose proper passwords, store them in whatever, one pass or whatever password manager you can, but make sure they're secure. That, I think that's some of the biggest reasons why sites get hacked. Is another thing on our list is never use the admin username or the default, ID1 user, because that's the go-to that all of these bots are going with, is like just the username admin and simple passwords. And you'd be surprised how many sites they get into because people leave these auto-generated admin user names in there and don't make a hard password. So big time, make sure you either just get rid of that one for sure and create a new user with not such a simple admin name to it and a hard password, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's one that I think that also goes with a little more complicated or complex, but I think you can use a WordPress plugin to do it, is changing the URL the WP-login. Kind of goes with that as well, that like because that's how they're finding your website, is they basically take your domain /WP login, and they get a positive hit off of that. Then they'll put it in a, check it off that one is good. Okay, now that we know that, now we're just going to hit them with the admin with this weak password, and then just try as many times as possible.
Yeah, and before we continue, a lot of these things we're talking about here are things that are available in a security plugin, and there are a couple of security plugins that you can install to activate a lot of these things that we're talking about. One really popular free version, I think they're a freemium. Because I don't use Wordfence, but Wordfence is free, but I think there is a paid tier that gets you additional security things.
There's like team features and stuff like that. I think that's how they work it. Is like, if you're just one user, then you can pretty much do everything on the Wordfence free version. And then I think there's like a paid version where it's like you can do teams and stuff like that, and it's more meant for like a enterprise kind of situation.
Yeah, another one is called Defender, and the one I use is a paid premium plugin called iTheme Security. And it's pretty much the only one I use for any of my clients that I'm doing, that they're on my maintenance package. They all get secured with iTheme Security, backed up with Backup Buddy, and me monitoring them and making sure they're safe.
Yeah. It's the way to go. I mean, we generally use Updraft for our backups, and then Wordfence is kind of the one we've had for security, and so it's been pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's a really common combo is Wordfence and Updraft for sure.
Yeah. I find Updraft is to be the easiest and has a decent free tier, so I'm just like, okay, that's easy enough for dealing with clients and getting them set up pretty quickly.
Yeah, Updraft was one, as well as the Backup Buddy, which I mentioned, and there was a third that I knew was quite popular called VaultPress. I don't know if there's any new players on the market, but there's a lot. But again, going to one of my first points, you want to make sure you're using reputable plugins that are being used widely by a lot of people, and that there's a company behind it that are actively continuing developing and patching, and that'll save you a lot, like I said in the beginning.
I always think of it as like having things secure generally means like you want it to not be exciting and cutting edge, because generally that's where the things are the least secure, and the things are going to break down the fastest is when you're doing stuff in there, because you're at the leading edge of it and what have you. So it's definitely one where I tend to err on the side of, I'm okay with it being boring because, then I don't have to have any issues with it.
Want to know more about SEO? We've got a class for that. Our mission is to educate students about the right tools, techniques, and strategies to grow their businesses using the most up-to-date search engine marketing optimization techniques and tools. Find out more at knowhowmarketinglab.com.
Yeah, regarding the backups, I just want to mention that I made notes to at least keep a weekly backup and a monthly backup. And as well, a lot of people are maybe a little bit lazy and just store the backup on their own local host, but definitely a better idea to store the backups in a remote location, because if something, God forbid, happens to your actual host, then you can't get your site, you can't get those backup files that are in
Yeah.
your host. So send them to an offsite location. If something drastic happens, you have that, and you can even set up a new host somewhere quite quickly, switch your DNS, and have your full backup restored on a new location fairly, like within a day. It can all be done. So
yeah, I mean, I put mine on Google Drive as well, just because then it's already backed up across their own network. So I'm, if Google's network goes down, I'm pretty sure we're going to have bigger issues to deal with. So that way, at least like I can access it remotely. I know they're going to be backed up. They're going to be safe. And so and it's also not, like you said, it's not on my own hosting. So not like that something happens to it. At least then it's like another company that's big and backing stuff up, and they're going to keep that safe. And then I can, like you said, grab it. Because yeah, like you said, you kind of want someone that's not like they call it single point of failure, right? Where you have like that one thing, kind of like how Facebook, remember 2 years ago, they all went down for like a day, and it was because they had a single point of failure, which was their DNS server was they had one DNS server because they didn't trust anyone else with it, and it went down. They couldn't access the room, so they couldn't reset it. So like single point of failures are not good.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was well, the same with like, actually, just funny aside is that like there's a single point of failure right now with the internet, all services as a whole, because they're all basically run through one Amazon Web Service host in US East, because it went down in 2017 and the internet basically stopped working because Twitter was running through there, Reddit ran through there. There was a bunch of other services that people are like, wait, you're using that Amazon web hosting? And then it turned out like a lot of data was run through that one web server, and so when it didn't go up, Shopify was also affected. I remember. Wow. Yeah, so it was one of those, like, over relying on a single point is dangerous, and so you definitely want to have like a company that's doing robust and spreading it out across their network as well.
Yeah. A couple of other notes that are for or can be done in these security plugins that I highly recommend are hiding your WP config file and the htaccess file. Commonly are attempted to be looked at. You can limit or block IP addresses, limit login attempts, what I mean. Yeah. Limit it to 3, like if you get 3 failures, just lock down that IP address. That's a pretty common security thing in a lot of these plugins. And that basically goes with what you were talking about, where if like bots are coming and they just constantly are, checking, is this password work? Is this password? It'll lock out that stuff, and it's virtually impossible to guess a password within 3 tries.
There's
really lucky.
or they got it off a leak, right? Another thing, I should have added this. There's a website called Have I Been Pwned, and that's a really good one as well. You should be logged into that website as well, because any security leaks, they'll find out, and then you can know to update your passwords. Leaks happen all the time. Like, it's just kind of the nature, because everyone's trying to break into everyone's website. So just assume at some point that info will be out there and you need to update your information.
Absolutely. You also already mentioned the changing the WP login, which is very common, but people don't even know the location to get to the login. That's very common. Disabling PHP in the uploads folder, if God forbid someone was able to get something up there, a lot of the times because the uploads is open to be able to store files, store images, and things like that. At least disabling PHP from being able to execute in your uploads folder will protect you from anyone trying to that is able to get something on there from actually running it and potentially hacking or destroying your site.
Yeah, I think we have had that one of our first websites we ever took care of got hit with what's referred to as the Japanese auto parts hack. And basically the website gets taken over and it's all in Japanese, and it's an affiliate website that goes to like buy Japanese parts. I don't know how, like, I don't understand. It was like one of the first websites we ever worked on, and I had to spend forever figuring out where the PHP code was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and we think it was an unsecured contact form. They uploaded it, and then they uploaded PHP to the website, and then just as soon as you removed it and restored the website, it would just come back and it would self-execute again. And so it was very annoying, especially when it was my first time doing it.
For a hack site, almost the first thing I do every time is log into the FTP, and I've moved fresh copies of the WP admin folder and the WP includes folder, and then rename the old directories. So the new directories that I pulled with the new files or the clean files are all there, and then I get rid of the old one, because that like if anything was uploaded maliciously to either of those folders, you've basically just like blown them away from the server and just put fresh new copies that you've downloaded to be used. That's one of the very first things I'll do on a hack site. And then I'll just go through the home folder, which only has 15 to 20 WordPress files, and see if there have been any changes or what the last date was for it to be on the server, to give me an indication of if one of those has been destroyed. And either delete all those and replace them with fresh copies. Just don't do that with the WP config file. That's the only file that's important that you need to keep.
Yeah, really bad things will happen if you delete that.
Do not replace the WP config file. It's absolutely mandatory to. It has your database information and your keys and all that stuff. So yeah, so we could just bang off a couple of other things. I mean, we probably. I wish I didn't have to say this all the time, but keep WordPress core updated and keep all your plugins updated.
Yeah,
will save you a ton of headaches, most likely.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we've gone through a couple of these other things. The PHP, we keep up to the latest version. I don't use a lot of web application firewalls, but they could protect you as well. I don't know why I don't bother setting them up.
I've never heard of them really being as necessary. Like, because I'm trying to think of like the use case in WordPress. Because the problem is like most of the sites that you and I are working with, they're not big enough to like warrant like a large scale like dedicated attack.
Yeah.
Because that's where I would say it's like, if you're like an enterprise client, you're like Fortune 5000, something like that. Like you're probably going to want something like a web app firewall. You're going to want something that's, keeping yourself secure from outside attacks, keeping your internal IP addresses safe and that kind of stuff. So that's more the use case that I can think of. Like, whereas like mom and pop businesses aren't really like, again, they're getting hit by like just, bot sweeps where they're just going through and just pinging people and seeing what they can get. Because they're looking for basically like the equivalent I think of as like, they're looking for the unlocked car versus the one that's locked, right? And they're not really like going for, anything that's difficult. They're not going to go for it. They're trying to make it easy.
Yeah, I know any of my clients who host with GoDaddy really pushes their firewall service, and I'm like, they all ask me, "Do I need this? Do I need this?" I'm like, and I really want to talk to someone at GoDaddy, and I'm like, why do you guys push this on customers so much? Like, I really don't. For most of those small business website cases, I'm like, it's really not needed.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And my guess is that it's probably that they're making the margins on it are probably good. you know,
Yeah,
just like
I mean,
a material reason that they're probably like, this costs us like nothing, so why might as well make the extra $20 off of every customer, and then
GoDaddy is not the cheapest shared hosting company out there by any
no,
means. They're
no,
actually quite expensive.
they yeah, I would definitely not recommend them for like for something that's as commodified and like you could get it pretty much anywhere. Like I would definitely not recommend to anyone to go with them.
I've never told anybody to go host at GoDaddy.
No, no. Like buying domains is fine with them. Like they're perfectly
Sure.
fine.
Sure.
They're not like but like any hosting stuff, no. steer clear from them.
So just to wrap up, because we got 3 minutes left, and we're doing pretty good with finishing off my list here. And we can, if anyone wants this list published later, we can post this in the group. So comment if you're interested in getting this. I was going to mention something that's super common, because every time a WordPress install is put up, there is the ability to edit some of your theme files from within the admin. So disabling the file editing from within the WordPress admin is highly recommended. If someone does somehow get access to your admin, that at least would lock down their ability to go and make changes or insert code into some of your theme files. Another one is changing the default database prefix. Usually it's WP underscore and then whatever your database name is. Changing that to WP underscore, site name underscore or something. Anything along those lines just makes it harder for them to figure out what your database table names are and things like that if they were to try to or get the ability to inject something into your database.
Yeah. Makes sense. Oh, I was just going to say one other one that came up is just like passwords. You should also keep API keys secure because people could do malicious things with it. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that explicitly. So keep them safe. I think, Greg, you said you just copy them on your clipboard and then just leave them on whatever website you got them from. Yeah, I'm just saying that, putting it out there, like make sure to keep those secure because people can do bad things if they do get a hold of them. So I just wanted to make that explicit.
Yeah, the last couple of things are, get rid of themes that you're not using. There's no need for them to be there. My standard is I only keep one additional theme in the theme folder, and that's whatever the newest default WordPress theme is, just as a backup in case something happens. There's at least that one default WordPress theme there to go back to or test, because a lot of things for testing purposes people say for troubleshooting, well, if it's your theme or do you know if it's a plugin? Well, you can switch the theme to a different theme and test and see if the problem still exists. If it goes away, then it's a problem with your theme, kind of a thing. I don't like doing that, especially on live sites, because you're changing the look of the site and you're probably going to lose things. But that is a way to figure out if you do have a problem that is within the theme itself, or if it's something relating to a plugin or something like that.
Yeah.
You can also hide your WordPress version so people don't know which version you're on. You should be on the latest anytime for security. But the last thing on the list is something you mentioned also, maybe wanting a reminder on later, which is blocking hot linking from other websites. And for anybody who might not know exactly what that is, basically it's blocking the ability for people to display an image somewhere else and on their own websites, but hot link so that it's display, like it's being pulled from your own website host, right? So that will eat up a lot of bandwidth. If a ton of people are hot linking to your site, every time their site loads, it's asking for a resource from your site. So if that's happening over and over again, it's eating bandwidth and slowing your own server down. So removing hot linking for typically all image files is a standard thing that a lot of people will do. So people just can't take an image from your site and be able to put it on their site, but have it being served from your own.
Yeah. That makes sense. That reminds me of a slow Laurel attack as well. It's like instead of a DDoS where you hit it with too many, what you do is you hit it with one request, but you send it at like 10 kilobytes a minute. So it's incredibly slow and it just leaves that port open. And there's no way to get rid of it. Like it's one of the ones that really annoying to deal with, apparently, from security people I've heard.
And I got through the list.
Yeah, we did it.
Over. There you go.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so that concludes this part. And so for next week, it looks like it's going to be Pip and I. We're talking about Google Smart Campaigns. How smart are they? We'll be discussing because we've been experimenting more with some smart campaigns. And yeah, it'll be interesting.
Awesome. Well, we hope everybody joins us again next week for that. And we'll see you in the group.
Yeah, sounds good. See you then.
Bye, everyone.
The conversation never stops in our Facebook group, Cyberpunk Geeks. Join us at facebook.com/groups/cyberpunk geeks to ask your questions, meet new friends, and learn even more about search, social, and websites.